next gentleman I'm going to introduce to you is not wishy-washy. I just want to remind everybody, when we had Charlie Crist a short time ago, everybody, Charlie, the Republican establishment, everybody went there. What happened? The people, the Tea Party, the grassroots, they said no to Charlie, and they took a guy, Marco Rubio, who was 30-plus points behind in the polls. They elevated him, and they kicked Charlie Crist to the curb. I tell you this man that's coming up is going to be our next United States Senator from the state of Florida.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Jack and Anita, for the invitation. More importantly, thank each and every one of you for being out here today. I know that this is the 2-year anniversary of the founding of the South Florida Tea Party. It reminded me of one of my favorite quotes. And that quote is never doubt that a group of committed citizens can change the world, because it is the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead said that, but it is this room and rooms just like it all around the country that changed the course of American history in the last 2 years, when each and every one of you said enough is enough, and we are going to stand up on principle and fight for the things that make America exceptional. 2010 was because of each and every one of you in this room. Now, I remember, and Jack just mentioned, it was only a few short years ago when we were fighting for what I would call at the time the heart and soul of the Republican Party. And that was because there were a lot of folks out there that said the best way to beat the Democrats was to join them. Those were all the Charlie Crist Republicans that said going to the center was the wave of the future. I said then, and I believe even more firmly today, that Republicans don't need to be less partisan. We need to be more principled. Right. And I will tell you, you're seeing it now, aren't you? You're seeing it. You started seeing it in New Jersey with Chris Christie. You're seeing it in Wisconsin with Scott. I know each and every one of you in this room share like I do. We want to see it over the next 2 weeks in Washington with Republicans standing firm. We don't want to compromise. We want to cut spending. Does anybody in here want to see a continuing resolution? No! Are you afraid of shutting this government down?
No! Shut it down.
The president's trying to put it on us and talking about 1995. Well, guess what? America is awake. It is different today than it was in 1995. America wants real reforms, and they need it because we have some true challenges ahead of us. And just briefly, 4 things that I'm going to be talking about here and all across the state, and that's one thing about what Jack said about me. My message is not going to be different, whether it's in Broward County, whether it's up in my home county in Palm Beach, or whether it's in Jacksonville and Panhandle or Southwest Florida. We have to get spending under control, balance the budget, reform entitlements. We have to do what it takes to reform our tax system, break down barriers to economic growth, and create that type of economic prosperity that we know America is built on and can be. We also believe in something very important, and that is that America is safer when America is stronger. That's right. And then also too, I want everyone to understand that social issues still matter. That's right. And I know a lot of people say that we need to move our focus away, but let me just tell you, we are a country based on unique Judeo-Christian values. Right. And we need to stay firm on those. That's right. And I'll share just a brief little story because most people don't know this about me. When they find out that I'm pro-life and pro-gun and a strong fiscal conservative, they don't realize that I'm also Jewish. And they say, how is it possible for the son of 2 Jewish public school teachers from Brooklyn to have grown up to be a conservative? That's because I came of age during a a time when we had a fearless president who was optimistic about the hopes and the dreams of America. That was Ronald Reagan. And he's somebody who I still admire and still inspires me today. So let me just share with you a few of the things that we just mentioned about spending. Our spending in Washington is out of control. It is bankrupting this country fiscally and morally. Our national debt is now over $14 trillion. It is what you and our children and our grandchildren are going to owe. That debt has now also become our nation's greatest national security threat as well. Our debt is our greatest national security threat. We have an obligation to get our spending under control. The House Republicans have led the way. That's a great first step with the $61 billion cuts for this year's fiscal budget, but we have to do more. And I know that they are planning to do more in the coming months and in the coming years because we have to get that under control. I have joined a group called PassTheBBA.com, the Balanced Budget Amendment. I joined Ken Blackwell, many of you know, national leading conservative. We are calling for a balanced budget amendment to the United States Constitution because if the leaders we put in Washington will not get this under control, then our children and our grandchildren are going to be denied the great American self-experiment and self-government. Now, let me just share with you this because I know it's not too popular, and that is this. Everyone understands in theory that we have to reform our entitlement spending. But when it comes down to the tough decisions, people still are unsure. Now, I have the privilege and the opportunity to go around and speak to a lot of groups. Some of those groups have a lot of younger citizens, under 40. When I ask that question, and for each of you who have a child or a grandchild under 40 years old, when I ask that question, how many of you in this room believe that Social Security or Medicare is going to be there for you when you get to that age? Not a single hand in the room goes up. Not a single hand. We have to. America can do better, and we must do better. We have to have a serious conversation about the retirement age, about means testing, about indexing benefits, about consumer-driven health care to preserve Medicare, about flexibility for states and block grants so we can save Medicaid for those who truly rely upon it. Those are the tough conversations. But in addition to getting fiscal stability from those types of tough decisions we have to make, we also need economic prosperity, and cutting alone is not going to do it. We need serious and comprehensive tax cuts and tax reform, making permanent the Bush tax cuts, making a flatter and fairer tax system, cutting corporate taxes, breaking down regulations that inhibit job growth and prosperity. You know, one of the things that troubles me most is what we're seeing in Washington today, in spite of the victory that we had in 2010, that you see the Obama administration using backdoor procedures through federal agencies like the EPA and the FCC to continue to advance their big government agenda. Those are the barriers to growth that we need to break down, and a Republican Congress and a new Republican president have to do that in the coming years to get America back on the path to prosperity. Now, let me share with you this. Our economic security, as I mentioned, is linked directly to our national security. And our foreign borrowing from countries that do not share our values and interests threaten our very own sovereignty and independence. Because if we cannot act in our own best interests on the world stage, then we are no longer the country who we believe and who we should be. That is because you're starting to see that our debt and our deficits that continue to pile up make us waver. And you see it every day in this Obama administration when it happened. And you see it now coming out in some of the release of some of those cables that were stolen and put on the internet. But our hands are tied. And I will tell you this, that if we continue to go down the path we are going down, that America as we know it will no longer exist. Now let me just share with you this, because the Obama administration has what I would call generously a warped view of the world stage. You know, their foreign policy doctrine of appeasing our enemies and distancing ourselves from our allies is making America less safe, less trusted, and less respected around the world. We must restore a national security platform based on the Ronald Reagan philosophy of peace through strength. And so let me just take this opportunity, too, to thank each and every one of you in this room or who have a family member who has served or who is serving in our United States Armed Forces. We bless you and we thank you for that sacrifice. Jack, before I wrap up, there's one issue that you mentioned that I want to talk about. Because on the world stage, we cannot fight an enemy if we are not willing to admit that an enemy exists. That enemy is Sharia-compliant Islam. We cannot allow political correctness or multiculturalism or appeasement cripple our defenses at home or abroad. Because let us remember, that threat of Sharia-compliant Islam does not only exist in foreign lands. That threat also exists here on our own soil, and it is a threat who seeks to destroy our country from within. Now, the good news is that we have demonstrated before that America can overcome tough challenges, and while the status quo of today is unworthy of our nation's history and heritage, I believe that together, each and every one of us in this room and around the country have the ability to elect the leaders to Washington who will say what needs to be said and who will do what needs to be done to restore the American promise for today and for future generations. Thank you all so much.
Yes, sir.
Majority Leader Hasner.
Speak up, please.
Majority Leader Hasner. Okay. Future senator. If you were elected senator, you know, a lot of senators.
Give me 1 second.
A lot of senators that claim that they're conservative Republicans, such as I'm just mentioning two, John McCain and Lindsey Graham, have both flip-flopped. You know, they say that they're for tighter border security, they're for this and that, but they've both been very supportive of quote-unquote comprehensive illegal immigration legislation, which is code for amnesty. If elected, would you oppose amnesty, and also would you support mandatory verify?
Two things. One is or a couple of things. One is absolutely, I am opposed 100% to amnesty. Immigration reform. Jack talked about one thing, though. Jack talked about the economic impacts of illegal immigration. I want to just mention two other impacts. We have a national security threat along our border. They are bringing in Hezbollah and other terrorist projects. Our border is a national security threat. That is why we need to put every resource available on that border, not just to protect it economically, but to protect it from a security perspective as well. And illegal immigration is this, too, in addition to economic and security. It's also a moral issue. We have laws on the books right now that we should be enforcing, but we're not. Right. Okay? And I would support E-Verify. As you know, I championed that bill in the state legislature last year and would do everything to bring that to the federal level and make sure that we have even better systems. If some people don't think this system works, make a better system. I heard Newt Gingrich talk the other night. He said if UPS and FedEx can track a package around the world, how come we can't keep track of 11 million or 18 million illegals in our country? Well, let me tell you this. The moral issue of illegal immigration is this, is that if we allow people to come into our country illegally and selectively choose which laws they want to abide by, then what good is the rule of law in the United States? Why shouldn't citizens have the right to be able to ignore any law that they want to ignore? And so it is an economic, a security, and a moral issue, and you can count on me being someone who is going to stand firm on having strong borders and no amnesty.
Well, it's refreshing to hear that you understand it.
Thank you. Russ, go ahead.
All the issues that we're dealing with mean little if our nation is attacked with a missile attack. How do you stand on missile?
Questions about missile defense. I would not have joined all of those Republicans in signing off on the New START Treaty.
Amen.
That made America. And I will, the question was also about, America being attacked from the outside. Let me just remind you what Lincoln said, and I'll paraphrase. And it is this, is that America is too strong to be destroyed or to be attacked from the outside, but we do have the ability to destroy what we have from within. And that is what we are doing today, fiscally and also from a security perspective.
Gabriel, you're next.
Okay, if you're elected a U.S. Senator, would you join Rand Paul in joining the Tea Party caucus, yes or no?
Well, I'm not a candidate for the United States Senate yet, so let's just consider that a hypothetical.
Very good.
Which is it U.S.?
1 second, I got one. Excuse me. Go ahead. Speak up.
Would you have voted for the extension of the Patriot Act, and how do you feel about the repeal of cost comitatus? Good question. Great question.
Let me tell you this: the Patriot Act I would have voted to extend, and I know that's an issue that a lot of people go both ways on. Obviously, I don't have a vote. I don't have the opportunity to look at the legislation and be a part of that debate right now. But I understand the importance of protecting individual rights and individual liberties. You've got to find that balance. But if I have to make that choice, I'm going to choose on the things that are going to make America safer and more secure. And I believe that at this time, that the Patriot Act did.
And cost comitatus, repeal of cost comitatus?
I'm going to defer on that one for now.
We're going to take two more questions. Janita will have the last one. Nora, making good, sir.
As a government that is pro-Israel, that is pro-Israel, our country is so weak. We're throwing our friends under our bus every day, and we are picking up our enemies, which is ridiculous. How would you, as maybe a senator, defeat this, whatever we have in the White House?
Well, I'm confident. This just goes back to the issue I talked about. Our foreign policy under the Obama administration is warped. That the Obama administration believes that it's better to fit in with the rest of the world than it is to lead it.
Exactly.
And I believe that we are going to elect a president, a Republican president in 2012 who believes in the Reagan philosophy of peace and restraint. If for some reason that Barack Obama is reelected under any circumstances, if for some reason that is to happen, you can count on me, but I know more importantly, count on each and every one of you to continue to hold his feet to the fire. That's why with over 600 days to go, there's no more time to rest. That's why you guys are in this room today. That's why you're in this room today. That's why I'm proud to be with you, proud to have the opportunity to come here and see friends and meet new friends and share some thoughts on what I think are the foundational issues for the next 2 years and probably for the next 20 more. Thank you all so much.